Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? My name is Tony Rizano, and this is the world famous, the University Love, the best podcast in how many galaxies, everybody? 1, 2, 3 galaxies. But you and I, we just call it Online Marketing Moves, and we are coming to you live today. Today is May the 18th, 2021. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today is Tuesday. Ladies and gentlemen, your pal has been out there sweating. We're here I'm recording this great podcast from the state of Georgia, right here in the good old United States of America, in the city of Atlanta. Today is 70 degrees. Next week, my wife and I, we are going to open up the pool. The pool, everybody. It's a lot of work, I will tell you that. You know why? Because we have these trees in our yard. Georgia is a very kind of wooded area, especially in the northern part of Georgia. It's kind of wooded, So we live around all these trees and everything. So, of course, as you well know, you have a pool, leaves come down, blah, 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 blah. So, these leaves have been on the pool. They have been on the pool cover for the last 2 years because last year we had a problem with our fence and we was getting the fence fixed. And of course, we had a problem with one company, called them. They couldn't get it to come. They couldn't come out and get it fixed. So by the time we got the fence fixed, it was like June, late June, early July. So I was just like, let's not even waste our time opening up the pool. So it's been 2 years. So I was out there today. Next week we're gonna open it up. So of course, the people that are like, hey, make sure the pool covers doesn't have any water, standing water, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, forget the standing water. The hard part is because I'm just going to go buy a little pump and get the water up. The hard part was trying to remove the leaves. That was, I got a trash bag out there, got my shovel, and it was, woo. I tell you what, I worked harder when I got home than I actually did last night. And now, I'm like, I still got more work to do. We got podcasts to record. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's the most important thing around here. All right. But man, I'll tell you what, everybody. If you ever want to get a pool, make sure it's not around a bunch of trees. Because the leaves fall and they get into the pool constantly. It's a constant thing. So you're sitting here, well, especially if you live around trees. Now, if you live in Arizona, then you probably don't have those problems because it's cactus, you know what I mean? But for me, for you, for other people that live around the trees, be very careful because now eventually, well, not eventually, but within the next year or two, we're gonna cut down a lot of. And first off, we're gonna cut them down because the trees are getting kind of old. You know what I mean? And a little rotted out. They're not as sturdy as they should be. So you want to be careful about that because you don't want trees falling into your house and falling into the pool and all that kind of stuff because that's more of a headache. So it's a whole thing. But you know what? I told my wife. I said between the pool, between the garden, I'm starting to really get I'm starting to really get my thrills of working around the house. And it motivates me more. I won't even tell you a lie. It motivates me more whenever I'm out there in the garden, because now the flowers are starting to bloom. We getting these roses are starting to blossom up. And I tell you what, they're very pretty. They're very pretty. It's a very bright yellow. You know what I mean? So I like it. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying more of the working around the house and doing things around the house. I like it, and I'm looking forward to the day that I work from home on a full-time basis. As in my internet marketing. I look forward to going out there and cruising around the lawnmower. Well, I'm getting a ride lawnmower. I don't know about you, but we pay this guy like $65, but I think $60, something like that. But I told my wife, I said, I'm gonna buy a ride lawnmower, so we don't have to pay anybody because after a while, $60, $50, I think, something like that. It's a little too steep for my taste, and plus it takes 5 minutes. It doesn't take that long on a ride lawnmower. I don't know about you, but back in the day, back in my day when I was a young man, when I was like 10 or 11, my dad used to wake me up. Come on, come on, come on, you know. I don't know about you, but I don't know if you have kids or not, but you know, I look forward to, Lord willing, of course. I look forward to my daughter, you know, raising up for, a very long time. And when she goes to school, I'm not gonna have the same look. My dad used to get so much joy in waking us up for school. And I don't know why, he would always be like my mom, I guess my mom, she was a little more understanding. She would wake us up at like 6:45 and she'd be like, yeah, come on, get up. And then, we would sleep 5, 10 more minutes. And then, she come in the second time. Second time, okay. My dad, he come in, hey, school, get your ass up, hey, school, hey, oh. I'm like, hey, man, slow down. Padre, what's wrong with you, man? Why are you so excited for us to go to school and you about to sit on the couch and watch TV? Because he would work nights. He worked a lot of evenings and nights when I was, young, when I was in elementary, because he worked on the farm, And I'm like, why are you so excited about, us going to school, my man? Like, this is ridiculous, you know what I mean? But I don't plan on kicking my daughter and be like, hey, get up. Not to say that my dad kicked me or nothing, but he would kick the bed, and that's super annoying. And I thought about him when I was in I'll tell you the worst place. For me, the worst place I ever went as far as having to get up when I was in boot camp in the Navy. I don't know about you guys, but when somebody's waking you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you want to cuss them all the way out. You're like, what the bleep is going on? And on top of that, we wasn't getting a whole lot of sleep. Like I remember my first night, we stayed up 24 hours. Okay. We stayed up all night. Next day we're doing all this stuff. And then that night, we finally got to go to bed. I remember I slept 2 hours and somebody woke me up. They said, hey, you got watch. I said, I got what? You got watch. So I'm standing up there like a zombie, And I'm like, oh my God, I'm tired. And then I think it was like from 12 to 2. I'll never forget this. It's from 12 to 2. So I slept from 10 to 2, woke up at 12. No, slept from 10 to 12, woke up at 12. And then from 12 to 2, they're like, hey, you gotta stand watch. I'm standing up there like, you know how in the movies that you like put some tape over my eyes or under my eyes or do something, put some put a piece of wood, like in the cartoon Tom and Jerry, they put a piece of wood in his eye to try to keep him awake or something, And then from 2 to 4, they're like, you can go to bed. And then 4 o'clock, the guy's like, get up. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? And I thought to myself, at that moment, at the first time, I thought, man, what did I get myself into? But that was the worst for me. So I don't know about you. I don't know how people. I'll tell you another story about waking people up. When me and my wife first started dating, she'll like this. And this when we first started dating. The first time she was spent the night in my I used to have this little apartment that I would call the Bat Cave. It was a little studio apartment, in Atlanta. And she spent the night. And I remember she still had her phone for like 7 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And then the alarm went off. And I remember I said, hey. And she was like, hold on. And then another alarm went off. I was like, what? It was like 7:15. I was like, this is annoying. And then another alarm went off. And at 7:30, I remember I just ripped the cover off her. She got so pissed off. She said, you know what? I started not to come back. She said, that really irritated me. She said it like a long time after that. She said, that was about to be my breaking point with you. And I was like, what? I'm like, you don't want to set like 50 alarms? Like, what's your problem? But it's I'm used to it now though. She does set like 60 alarms, and she never gets up. But I love her, so it don't matter anymore. But that was just a funny story. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to talk about the most important thing that you can do, and we talked about this before, but I want to reiterate this because this is very important. The most important thing that you can do as far as any business, the most important thing you can do is be consistent. The more consistent you are, ladies and gentlemen, the better off you will be. Why do I say that? Because I will give you 2 examples why you should be consistent. Well, I gave you one. I'll give you a personal one, then I give you 2 that I know of people. One is the flowers. You know, I've talked about this. We planted flowers like 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, and really didn't do anything with them. They sort of fizzled out. And so this year I told my wife, I said, you get the flowers and everything, and I'll plant them. I'll water them. I'll put food in them, this, that, and the other. And now, we're starting to see the results. We're starting to see, the flowers are coming back. They're blooming. Flowers from 2 years ago are starting to bloom again. All they need is a little water. All they need is a little food and a little bit of love. And I do it every day. And I'm happy to do it every day. I'm consistent. The same thing as with this podcast. We do this podcast every day. And now we're starting to get more listeners. And we're starting to get more people on jumping on board, and that's the most important thing you can do. And that's with anything as far as creating content. If you're going to do a YouTube channel, do a video, especially when you're first starting out, because the reason why I say when you're first starting out is because it's like riding a bike. It's like training wheels. You can't get better if you don't do it all the time. Like this podcast wouldn't get better if I did it once a week. It wouldn't. I would still be and you would be like, what the hell is this? Get out of here. But we do this every day, and every day, it gets better. You find something, you say, okay, I can work on this, I can work on that. Let me do this, let me do that. You just want to get better at this whole thing. And yeah, at first, sometimes the frustration will kick in, and you might not get as many listeners as you want. Trust me, hey, it happens. It's like Seinfeld, the TV show. You ever watched the Seinfeld Chronicles when it first came out? Floundering at best, struggling. I mean, it was a good show, but it was struggling. It was struggling to get ratings. And then eventually, 1 or 2 seasons, 3 seasons, boom, put them on Thursday nights, boom, they take off. Boom, they start rocking and rolling. Show gets better, show's a classic. Okay? And I will give you an example of one person being consistent and one person not being consistent. Now, I knew a young lady, and her dad bought her a little not a grocery store, but like a little convenience store without the gas, sort of like, just think about a corner gas station, a corner store, So it was little, but it was a store. It's a nice little store. Got a little store, got a little setup. And I remember people said, "Oh man, that's a nice store, but I'm not going there." I'm like, "Why not?" And they say, "Cause we don't never know when she open. She'll come in on a Wednesday, open up at 7 p.m., stay till like 10. Say, all right, that's it. I'm closed. The store won't open back up again till Saturday for maybe an hour, 2 hours at most." So it's very inconsistent. And of course, as you well know, that store did not last but probably 4 months, because why am I gonna waste my time walking to a store that's never open? You know what I mean? It's like when you go to if you ever go to Walmart, and the power might be out at your house, but if you go to Walmart, the power's on. They got generators, okay? They're gonna be open. So, it's like the Waffle House as well. The Waffle House is always open. So if you can't get a meal anywhere else, especially if you ever ladies and gentlemen, if you're not from the southeastern region of the United States, and if you ever in Georgia or Florida or somewhere like that, and you need a meal at midnight, go to the Waffle House, because they're always open. Like, they never close. Doesn't matter the holiday, doesn't matter. They never close. So, but that's consistency. You know what I mean? And so this girl, her store lasted probably 3 or 4 months, and poof, that was it. It's like the music people that put out one album every 6 years. It's like, oh, okay, I like them, but I'm not looking for them, because they gonna put out an album once every 5-6 years. I mean, it's fine. You do what you want to do, but you're gonna lose a good portion of your audience after a while. If you put out an album every 5 years, it's like, okay, thank you, I appreciate your album, but I'll see you in 5 years. I mean, it is what it is. And the other example of consistency is my friend. I told you about my friend before. He owns a donut shop, and every day when he was struggling for his donut shop, I remember he told me, he said, "Man, I wrecked my car." And I was like, "What'd you do?" And he's like, He's like, Monday through Friday, man, I lived in the shop. He said, what else am I supposed to do? He's like, Monday through Saturday, I lived in the shop. And I'm like, man, really? He's like, yep. He's like, I couldn't get back and forth to where I live. So he's like, on the day that I knew it was gonna be closed, he's like, so, I got picked up and dropped back off at my mom's house. But for the most part, I was there for like 3 months until I got enough cash to get my car back up and running. And I'm like, that's cool. And now this guy, he doesn't have to, you know, I call him up and I'm like, what you doing? And he's like, chilling, man. He's like, I don't got to do a whole lot. I got the store running, I got the system going. It's good. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. That's a beautiful thing. But he was consistent about his work. He's consistent. Every day he showed up and every day, he put in the work and it paid off. And, I know, sometimes I would say it's beating a dead horse, but it's not, because consistency, if you're not consistent, you can be the greatest, you can be the greatest writer, you can be the greatest anything. But if you don't show up all the time, then who's going to know this? Who's going to find this out? You know, sometimes, in some situations, yeah, you show up, you consistent for a while, then you could sort of fall off, sort of like I remember Chris Tucker. If you ever seen Rush Hour 1, 2, or 3, Chris Tucker, he was a comedian. He's very funny, and I remember he hit that Rush Hour lick, and then he got like 25 million for Rush Hour 2 and Rush Hour 3. And Chris Tucker has not done a movie since. I mean, for a time, he was very consistent. He showed up all the time, and then when he got paid, I mean, he was out. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that, But get to where you want to go before you stop. Before you become inconsistent. I remember for a while when Dane Cook, he was one of the hottest comedians, and he was tour after tour after tour. And I guess Dane Cook, he gathered up enough money, and then Dane Cook said, "Well, adios, amigos," and that was it. So, you know, you want to finish, and you want to start, but you also want to finish. Now, we talked about this yesterday. We talked about, hey, if it's not going to work, if it's something that you're not into, something that that won't work for you, get out quick. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, if you can do it and you feel it in your bones and you can do it, then get it done. Then go ahead and do it, And the reason why you should is because you don't want any regrets. You don't want, listen, I'm 41. I'm 41 years old, and I'm on the verge of being 42. And the one thing that I say in life is I regret very little. I've made a lot of mistakes, went down a lot of wrong paths, but at the end of the day, life is a life is a journey, and you have to just go for it sometimes. And once you figure that out and you start going for things, and don't try to live in a don't the safe way ain't gonna get you where you want to go. You know what I mean? Like, we just talked about this. I just told you. Me, swinging for the fence, I want to be at my house every day. I want to work from home. I want to walk outside, see the pool, walk back in, get back to work, take a lunch. I could take a lunch outside, eat my little lunch outside, come back, put in some more work, and that's what I want to do. And this is why we are here every day, being consistent, And first, you have to make a commitment. It's a quote I heard from Denzel Washington. It was a good one. I was like, man, Denzel, he dropping the gym, I think he was giving a speech. He probably won an award because Denzel Washington, he wins a lot of awards. But he said, without commitment, you will never start. Without consistency, you will never finish. And that holds very true. You have to commit to something. You want to make a commitment. So if you are inconsistent on some things and you want to get consistent, then start today. Tell yourself, say, hey man, hey lady, hey, hey whoever, whatever. Just say, hey, I want to do this. I'm going to do this every day. Every day I'm going to show up, and every day I'm going to get better, and every day I'm going to be consistent about it. And the results, a lot of people want things to happen boom, right then and there. But hey, life does not happen that way. You know what I mean? What you can do, you can go out there every day, give you a flower. I'm a gardener now. You go out there every day. You water the garden. You water the garden. You give us some love. You give us some love, baby. And the flowers will bloom eventually. It might not be as fast as you want them, but eventually they will bloom, because the more consistent you are, the better you will be. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it today for the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode about consistency. Now, we've talked about this in the past, but every now and then when it hits me, I do something that happens and it reminds me, hey man, be consistent. I have to share it with you, because a lot of times you will be amazed, and that's the one thing that slows us down, is being consistent. And I know for me, that was a big thing that slowed me down. I would have these grand ideas, and I was like, all right, let's go. And then we would start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. So, you know, I'm an older man. I'm just kidding. Nah. But nah, if you want to get to where you want to go, you know, you you can't start and stop a car and get from New York City to California in 3 days. If you keep starting and stopping, you're gonna get it's gonna take you like 6 months to get there. You know what I mean? So be consistent, show up, show out. No, you don't have to show out, but just show up, put in the work, and it might people say, hey, don't, a lot of people try to tell you, hey, don't, it might not work, but nah, it'll work. Something will shake. You know what I mean? Like, if you just keep doing stuff, if you just keep trying things, if you keep putting out the effort, then something will shake, man. That's how the universe works. I mean, it happens. Like, no human has bad luck all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of people love to tell hard luck stories, but nobody has bad luck 24/7. Like, nobody. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be about it for the pod. Oh yeah, I got a question for you. Does anybody live in the southern hemisphere? I was thinking about this when I was outside, because I was like, oh, it's kind of nice outside. And I remember when I was younger, I used to watch when I first started watching the Australian Open, and it was January. And I remember I would get done watching football, not American football, but I would get done watching football. So it would be like Chicago, the Chicago Bears, it's an NFL team, the great Walter Payton. And it would be snowing. It would be like wind. It would be like 20 degrees, 20 below. And then they would show like the Australian Open, and it would be like 80, 90 degrees. And I always thought, and then I thought, I was like, oh man, it's like summer all the time in Australia. And I was like, that's cool. And then when I got older, somebody told me, they was like, hey, genius, it snows in like July in Australia sometimes. I'm like, or it's the wintertime. I'm like, what? It's the wintertime. I'm like, really? I'm like, that's crazy. But that's just how it is. And I guess it's that way for a lot more places. So how does that work? Like, when it's January, you just go out? Well, again, of course you do. I'm not trying to be in that. I'm not trying to be an American, but I'm very curious about this. Me and my wife, that's one thing that we are. I'm very curious about the world. Like, I'm very curious about what goes on in different places. And so it's very interesting to me how that works. So in like January, when I'm here freezing, somebody lives in the southern hemisphere. You live in Australia. You're like, hey man, I'm out here, 90 degrees outside, I'm having a good time. I'm at the beach and everything. That's interesting. And I used to wonder why people was like, when I got older, people like, I met this guy once. Don't worry, I'm about to end the podcast. But I met this guy once, and he was an older guy. He was cool, and I was in the truck. So now I was over the road, and I was like, "Hey man," he was like, "Hey man, I'm headed to Key West." I'm like, "Key West?" And he's like, "Yeah, I go to Key West every year." He's like, "You got to get away." And I'm like, "Get away from what?" And he's like, "Get away from the weather." And he's like, "You don't go to." He's like, "You don't go to Key West." I looked at him. I said, "Buddy, I'm in an 18 wheeler working. I don't think I'm making it to Key West anytime soon. You know what I mean? My money's not that up. My money's kind of funny, so He's like, "Oh man, summer home, winter home." He's like, "Man, one day you'll get there." I said, "Well, thanks, pal. I hope so." So I'm looking forward to that day. But anyway, um, one of these days, there's somebody that lives in the southern hemisphere. Shoot me a message and let me know how that works. What are you doing? Because I'm very curious. Because because now it's spring and we're about to turn, and next month is going to be summer. So does that mean it's the winter? And does it snow like in the southern hemisphere? Like, how does this work? All right. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Get out there and be consistent. All right. But we will be back tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow's a special day. It's my birthday. But we will be back tomorrow with the all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, and pray that my wife and my mother get me a nice gift. But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with the all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, my name is Tony Rizzano. Thank you for listening. And as always, everybody, peace.